From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. I am Ben Hall. Good show tonight. We are talking about one of those topics that always gets people going. Always an opportunity for people to call in. I appreciate hearing from both sides, talking about gun laws in Tennessee. We can expand a little bit to gun laws across the country, but focusing primarily gun laws in Tennessee. We have with us John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association. We appreciate you coming back. Thank you for being here.
I enjoy it.
You come on, and now you lobby up at the legislature.
Not as much as I used to. I'm considered a volunteer lobbyist, which means I don't get paid for going over there.
Okay.
And in the last 8 years or so, they have increased the frequency with which they stream the activities live, so I don't have to go sit and wait for something to happen.
But you monitor what's going on up there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you are, for those who don't know, very, I guess, pro-gun. What would you call yourself?
I am pro-constitutional rights. That happens to be one of them.
Okay. All right.
First Amendment, I'm just as hard.
So what happened, in your opinion, up at the legislature this year? As it relates to gun laws in Tennessee.
Yeah. We tracked 73 bills this year that we thought related to issues of interest to gun owners. Now, those could be things like handgun carry permits. It could be a hunting bill. It could be a land use bill, like where you can build a gun range. It could be restoration of rights, a civil rights issue. So we track all of that type of stuff. And of the 73, I think we reported that 23 of the ones that we were tracking actually became law.
So there were 73 bills that had something to do with guns, right?
Or gun-related rights.
Guns or gun-related rights. Some of those would have restricted the rights, some of those would have expanded them.
Yes, for example, someone who had a nonviolent felony, whether or not they could get their ability to own a gun back would be the type of thing that we would track.
And was that a bill? Was that one of the bills this year?
Yeah, there was a bill that passed in 2013 that gave the ability for someone who only has one nonviolent felony, a grade E felony, to petition a court and have their rights restored. It has to be a nonviolent felony, and it has to be the only blemish on their record. So like writing a bad check over a certain amount. They can petition and have that expunged from their records. Well, this year, the legislature expanded that law just a little bit, and now they say there can be 2 convictions, only one of which can be a nonviolent felony, the other can be a misdemeanor. But they've moved the ball a little further down to give a few more people relief.
And why do you think that's important? Why do you think, if you get a felony, should you get a gun?
Well, I think, at least in the gun advocacy side, generally they will say if you've committed a violent felony, if you have violent tendencies, then it's probably in society's best interest that you don't carry around a gun. But if you have nonviolent felonies, people who, for example, lie on their tax return, now it's a heinous thing, or they write a bad check over $500 at some point in their life. Those are bad things, but are they so bad that the rights are permanently taken away from them? And not only has Tennessee started to go down that path, but the federal courts are actually starting to go down that path now and saying, wait a minute, if the crime, even if it's a felony, is relatively harmless in terms of third parties, it's not a violent crime, and particularly if it's an older, something that's 15, 20 years old, they're saying because we're talking about a constitutional right, a permanent lifetime ban is too harsh, and they're saying the states have to have some type of safety valve, and they're starting to create those. I mean, Tennessee's not the only state.
No, and these gun laws, they vary from state to state, don't they?
Oh, yes.
It's really, this is a state battle.
It is, and it should be.
And I mean, the Supreme Court rejected a case from California that would be, and I know you don't know a lot about that, but the Supreme Court gets involved from time to time, but the real battles are in the state legislature. Is that a fair statement?
They are, because as a general matter, under the U.S. Constitution, the federal government doesn't have general police, general crime authority. It's only in some very narrow areas where it has general powers otherwise. And now Congress has sort of tried to create for itself a bunch of powers using the Commerce Clause. So we have drug laws and gun laws, but almost all of that's because they say drugs travel in interstate commerce, guns travel in interstate commerce. There's always a hitch back there. But the way we were set up in the 1700s, Congress wanted to regulate the big issues like, you know, the Army or interstate travel or commerce between the states. And they left all the criminal code stuff, the wrongful use of force, to the states. And that's really, in my opinion, where it needs to stay. And it's been a disservice to the nation to move that power to the federal government.
And so somebody that is focused, you know, is pro-Second Amendment, you know, pro-gun rights, I would think in Tennessee, you would be feeling pretty good about where things are. Is that true, or are you not satisfied at all?
Well, I can answer that, and it's not a great answer if you're a big GOPer, okay? If you look at studies that national magazines, for example, and interest groups do, comparing all the states, Tennessee is not at the top when it comes to the Second Amendment rights. It's usually in the middle of the pack, if not below the 50% point. And so, for example, 60% of the states already have laws that let you carry a firearm openly without having to have any kind of permit. All you have to be able to do is legally possess the gun. Tennessee's in the bottom 40% of that. 14 states, now 15, have laws that say you can carry the gun openly or concealed, and you don't have to have a permit. No state fees. Tennessee, we've got one of the highest fee systems in the nation. And so when you look at how they rank states across, you know, sort of set up some criteria and standards and then just rate them for gun owners, Tennessee very seldom is in the top half. And I think that's unfortunate, you know, because we've sort of got this, even Hollywood thinks we're the patron state of shooting stuff,
right.
You know?
Right. You would think. And so I guess where are we headed? It seems like there are those who think there are too many guns, as we've talked about. There are those who think there are too many guns, who think there need to be more regulation, and I feel like they're losing over and over again in the legislature. They are. Perhaps on the state or on the national level as well, they're losing over and over again. Certainly here in Tennessee. Where do you think we're headed?
I think we're headed in the path that most of the other states are ahead of us. And the reason is, when you look at the data in these 30 states, every state that touches us but Georgia allows their citizens to carry a gun openly with no permit. When you look at the data about is crime worse in those states that don't have any permitting at all, you know, if you own it legally, you can carry it. The crime data, the violence data isn't worse because, I mean, it's not like you would say, well, they're not doing background checks, so it's got to be worse. Well, the fact is it isn't. And the great thing is we've got 50 states to play this game of what works and what doesn't. And what we're finding out is the states that allow people, and this is key, who can legally possess a gun to have it with minimal restrictions on possession and where they can go with it, typically are safer states than Tennessee is. I mean, you look at our murder rate right here in Nashville in the last, 6 months, we're up, what, 63%?
I see these statistics, though, and I get awfully skeptical. Okay, I feel like any side can spin this any way they want.
Yeah, it is what it is.
The more guns out there, the safer you are. The more guns out there, the less safe you are. The more deaths. So I feel like both sides can spin that. This would be national again. The CDC, don't they, funding for testing that the CDC could do about guns is consistently not allowed. Should we do more, testing, getting data about gun deaths? What do you think about that?
We already do have a lot of data on gun deaths, but it doesn't have to come from the CDC. For example, the FBI, the National Bureau of Statistics that they work with, tracks deaths, homicides, assaults, all of that involving firearms. It's broken down by state, sometimes by geographic regions of states. So we've got a lot of data. It just doesn't happen to come from the health department, okay? It's coming from the gun department, the FBI guys.
Right.
And so the data's out there and it's pretty good, and that's where I say that the data in these states that allow a lot more freedoms than we have shows we're not safer because we have more restrictions. And you're saying we have more guns, and That's true. If you look at TBI, in Tennessee, TBI is the state agency that has to approve every new retail gun sale, okay? So from a dealer to an individual, TBI checks every one. On average, over the last, they started doing that November 1 of 1998. That's when TICS went into effect, Tennessee Instant Check System. On average, there are over 300,000 new guns sold in Tennessee each year.
Okay.
Okay? Because they charge $10 a piece. We see how much money they're making.
Right, right.
Okay? Is it getting, geometrically worse because we've put in that 20-year span of time, another 6 million guns in the streets in Tennessee? No, we're not that much worse.
I don't know. Are we worse? I don't know. I mean, you just said things were more violent here in Nashville. I mean, we see these shooting deaths every morning, and that can lead to a whole new thing about what the media is covering and that kind of thing. But I don't know.
But it's not because there are more guns. There's something else going on.
Right.
The volume of guns, there's more than enough guns out there to kill everybody, already. So it's not the presence of guns or that a few more guns got on the street since last year. It's something else going on in society. In the mix of people, whatever it is, but it's not the presence of guns in general.
That cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
And so the argument is you can't start limiting it.
It's like a new beach,
Right.
Everyone's running around that way, and you can't blame suntans on that.
All right. Okay. All right. So that kind of sets the table for our discussion.
Okay.
We can talk about laws here in Tennessee, national, whatever you want to talk about. There's the number, and we'll just start taking calls. 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We may also be streaming live on our Facebook page at some point, and if you want to comment, you can comment down there in the comment section, and perhaps I'll read the comment to be part of the conversation. But go ahead, give us a call. We'll take your call, take a break, be back right after this.